Hi, everyone. I hope this finds each of you so very well. I'm speaking to you from my studio in West Orange, New Jersey. Beyond delighted to have this opportunity to interview the remarkable Sue Frederick, who is an accomplished speaker and teacher, an author, an intuitive, an ordained unity minister, a soul regression therapist, a master numerologist, and a certified creative arts therapist. To say the least, Sue's background is quite diverse. She was trained to be a professional career counselor at the University of Missouri, became an accomplished rock climber, led extreme survival courses for Outward Bound, found the Career Intuitive Coach Training Institute, has been a guest on more than 200 radio and TV shows, and has served as a faculty member for the University of Colorado and Europa University. She is also a former corporate vice president and magazine executive director. And two more of Sue's many gifts. She's been an intuitive since childhood, and she is an accomplished author. Her 6 highly acclaimed books provide roadmaps for manifesting the work we each came here to do, the love we came to experience, how best to connect to our departed loved ones for healing, and how to use pain as fuel to fulfill our greatest potential. She has been featured in the New York Times, CNN.com, Real Simple Magazine, Yoga Journal, Natural Health, and Complete Woman magazines, as she has presented workshops at venues such as Omega Institute, the Crossings Retreat Center, the American Businesswomen Association, and the National Career Development Association. She's amazing. I'm looking forward to interviewing Sue about how grief has been her greatest spiritual teacher, the ways mystical experiences of dream visions and conversations with departed loved ones can shift grief, the vision she received in which she was shown that the light is always winning no matter how grim things may appear, why lifting into our soul's view is necessary for healing and a purposeful life, and more, for what is surely going to be an incredibly enlightening and insightful interview. Sue, with full heart, I welcome you to Grief and Rebirth Podcast.
Oh, Irene, I love you so much, sweetheart. It's an absolute joy to be here.
Thank you.
And when I die, you need to do my celebration of life and read that, because I don't remember half of that. So it's really good that you're reminding me. It's been a long lifetime.
Long busy lifetime, girl. Look at how
I'm ready for a beach vacation in the divine realms, And
you can really see, like when you talk to you and you read your books and you can see all these experiences. They're such rich experiences that contribute to your wisdom and who you are. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
You're so sweet.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we're a mutual admiration society.
We are.
And we're only 22. It's just
That's right.
So let's start and have everybody get acquainted with you in even a deeper way, because you've been an intuitive since childhood. So tell us what that was like for you. And I know you grew up in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So, right. So, and do you have a favorite story about that period in your life you'd like to share with us, or a few favorite stories?
Yeah, well, I think, anybody who I was born in the early 50s. And so back then, I think those of us who were around then, we knew that as a child, it wasn't okay to say, hey, I saw a spirit, and we would have said ghost. Hey, I saw a ghost in my room, or come to the breakfast table and share a precognitive dream that would come true that afternoon. That didn't really make you popular. And it also terrified my mother in particular, because she wanted me to be normal, quote unquote, so that I would end up being able to get married and have children. That was really her goal for me. Remember, it was the 50s, right? And here was this weird kid coming to breakfast saying, I had a dream about a car accident and describing it in detail. And then that exact thing happening on later in the day. So what I'd say about it is, today, in these times, even though these times are challenging, one of the good things about these times is that the word intuition is not a terrible word anymore. And that people who are very sensitive can be known now as empaths rather than weirdos. So there has been progress on those fronts, you know?
Right. So little kids aren't running around where, I mean, and hopefully fewer kids are running around where people are saying, you're too sensitive, you're too sensitive.
Oh, I
Now
know.
we
I
know
mean,
it's a gift.
it is. And back then, you know, I cry very easily, and I've made peace with it because it's my body's way of processing things. Even when I do a session with a client, when their departed loved one or their child comes through, often it makes me cry. There's so much love there. There's so much connection that, you know, tears. But when I was young, you know, boy, I would get so kind of bullied over that because crying was considered a really bad thing for a long time in our culture. And I'm so glad that it's more, you know, acceptable these days because it's healthy to cry, very healthy.
And even if it's a boy, even if it's a boy, in fact, sometimes I think boys need permission to express their emotions
They really
even more than girls do, you
They
know?
really do. And do you know that there's research that shows that when we cry, it gives us endorphins. It actually changes our body chemistry. So if you're grieving today and you let yourself, I have a client who says, oh, the problem is I'm crying all the time. I said, baby girl, that's fine. Go sit down, have a great heart opening cry. And then you're going to feel so much better until it builds up again. And then I teach a little meditation where you can cry and hold your palm in front of your heart chakra and let that pain pour out of you into your palm, picture it that way, and then lift it up and say, I offer this pain to the divine to be transformed into love, and cry it out, and you will feel so much better.
That's beautiful. Did you come from the generation like I did that if you cried, someone would say to you, I'll give you something to cry about?
Oh, yes, I heard that
Oh
many, many
my
times.
God. I mean,
Isn't that awful?
I horrible. And I used to hear that too. Yeah. You better cut it out. Thank God we're where we are today, right?
I mean,
I
how did
look
we
forward.
survive, Irene, right?
Right. And then so we've just touched on your childhood, and then in your completely perfect life, your husband died in your arms of cancer when you were just 29 years old. So please tell us about that heartbreaking experience, and how did grief then become your greatest spiritual teacher?
Well, you know, I view grief perhaps differently than mainstream psychology does. And I also I view grief differently now than I did at the age of 29 when my husband crossed over. But what happens when we are devastated with grief, and in my particular soul agreement with my beautiful husband, Paul, we were outward bound mountaineering instructors. We were physically so strong. We had great love, passionate love. He is and was such a kind, amazing soul. When he was diagnosed with colon cancer, it was just because he had some weird stomach problems, and a doctor had told him it was nerves or something. And this was the 70s, like there was no such thing as a colonoscopy. And so by the time he got the real diagnoses, they basically gave him 2 weeks to live. But Paul and I were so in love, like we wouldn't take that. So we dabbled in alternative medicine, conventional surgery, chemo, everything we could find, we did, including an amazing trip to see a Native American healer, Chief Fool's Crow, one of the most sacred Native American healers. Wow. And that was profound because Chief Fool's Crow then did all these amazing things to help Paul cross over a month later when the time of his crossing had come. And Paul would wake up singing Lakota, although he'd never known Lakota, the language of the Sioux. And he would say, oh, Chief Fool's Crow visited me and taught me 2 songs, one song to help me with the pain and one song to help me cross over. And I mean, Paul was not like that. He grew up the son of a Christian minister, and in his last year was having such mystical, amazing experiences that he was taking me on the journey of learning that there's a much bigger understanding of life and death. So that in his moment of death, even, he was teaching me, because he had been in a coma, and I had promised him, he'd made me promise him that he would die at home in my arms. And I'd made that promise a million times. We had hospice nurses who would come to the house and help us, but I was his primary caregiver. And then he had a medical emergency, and we got kind of rushed to the hospital. And sometimes those situations happen. People suddenly find themselves in a hospital room and their loved one is in a coma, and they had promised that the person could die at home. And so I was really upset at that point. And all of our friends arrived at the hospital room, and we're standing around talking, and I fell asleep on the floor of the hospital room because I was so exhausted from caring for him. And Paul immediately came to me in the most vivid dream, and he was happy and free and healthy. And he said, "Sue, what are you doing? Get up off the floor. I'm not trapped in that body. My spirit is free, but I'm waiting for you to come and hold me in your arms and tell me it's okay, to let me go." And I woke up out of that dream, and I was like, "Everybody get out of here. I need just me and Paul's mom. Paul just told me he's ready to cross over."
Oh my gosh.
I know. And so my friends were like, "Okay, that's weird, but whatever," And so I got on one side of Paul, and his mom got on the other, and we started saying, "Oh, it's okay. We'll be all right. We want you to be free and just go and fly out and be in those mountains." And Paul had been in a coma for more than 24 hours. His breathing had not changed. And as we told him it was okay for him to go, he took this beautiful sigh. It was so peaceful. And I saw his soul lift out of his body and leave out to the mountains. And I saw it with every cell. I'll never doubt that for my whole life. I saw it so clearly. And
What a blessing.
He was teaching me there is no death. So Paul's my greatest teacher on this lifetime, and grief has been my greatest spiritual awakening.
That's amazing. In some ways, I guess the same thing happened to me with Saul.
Yeah.
It happened to me. So they were both our teachers.
That's right.
To introduce us to what we're doing. Was his mom able to see his soul also?
Yes.
And he was.
Yeah, because his mom was, the minister's wife. So she had her own sort of Christian dogma stories about death and Jesus and all this stuff. But as we stood at the bedside holding Paul, we were, the only word I can say is awe. The light being that is our soul, that is not part of the body. It's a pure, beautiful light being is the only words I know how to put to it. We both saw that. There was no religious story around it. There were no religious icons. And we both walked over and stood at the window, even though, his body was still in the bed. We knew, we had seen his soul was free. And we stood at the window just looking and crying and holding each other like, wasn't that beautiful?
My God.
That was so beautiful.
And look at what you're doing now. That same comfort that you got, you're giving to so many people.
But I want to say to anybody who's grieving that it's not like from that day on, I was like, "Okay, people, I'm good. I understand life and death now.
Everything's beautiful."
We're human and we're divine at the same time. And we walk with one foot in the human realm and one foot in the divine. And we have to feel the pain here. It's what we agree to experience here as part of our growth journey. So I grieved enormously in my 30s, messed up a lot of relationships that I was trying to have because I wanted to get married and have babies after all, right?
After all, that was your script.
It was.
You were still trying to keep your script.
I know. And so when you're grieving, boy, you make a lot of crazy choices, but I learned from every one of them.
And it made you the colorful, wonderful person you are, all those experiences.
I've had a lot of crazy choices, but I'm grateful because every single one of them got me to be who I am today. And I love the journey, looking back on it, like, whoa, that was quite a ride.
But the beautiful thing about it is that you're not at all judgmental and you're so accepting, which I think came from your
Yes.
own travails and what you went through, that you can understand. You don't judge anyone else's
Well,
process at all.
don't you agree, Irene? That's how we are when we have had to live through pain and hard moments. We start realizing what's really important. And it's not any of the stuff that this world tells us is important. And that we learn to see things more from the soul's view, which is, look at that beautiful soul trying their best that they can to navigate their journey. It's not, oh, look at that person who messed up that career or this or that, or has addictions. Once you've seen it from the soul's perspective, which grief helps us do, the judgment seems irrelevant after that. It's just not getting the point of life,
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I have I have a magnet on my refrigerator that says cancel my subscription. I don't need all these issues.
Yes, right.
Because you get a perspective about, what's really important
Right.
in life. I'm not sweating all this little small stuff, and we'll
Right.
talk about that more later. But I want you to please describe how mystical experiences of dream visions and conversations with the departed loved ones shift grief, because you do that a lot with people and you see that.
Yeah. Well, in my own story, that has been the constant, even that night after Paul crossed, and I went home to my apartment and got in the bed that I'd shared with Paul.
So
I went to sleep that night, and I woke up, or I guess I didn't wake up at 2 a.m. I was sort of awake, and I felt Paul's body pressed up against me, cuddling in bed, so clear. I can still remember that feeling. It was not just a spirit. I could really feel his body. And he was there holding me like this final goodbye. And then this being of light reached over me and tapped Paul on the shoulder, and he lifted up because he needed to kind of move on with his spirit guide, not get stuck here in the earthly realms. And but that was just one experience, and they've continued with other departed loved ones. And what I do for a living now, like for example, today I had a grieving mom client from Helping Parents Heal. You and I both love helpingparentsheal.org, such an amazing nonprofit.
Absolutely.
And this mom's 28-year-old son had crossed, and what I do is I sit down and do the departed soul's birth path through numerology. And I call them and say, but I speak to them and say, tell me about your story. Tell me about what happened here. What was this journey like for you? And what do you have to say to your mom? And this beautiful spirit, he just showed up right in front of me, even physically. I could see what he kind of looked like, his hair and the color of his skin. And he told me a story, and I wrote it all down because I just write whatever I hear. I don't question it. And I picked up started the Zoom call with his mom and read it to her before she could tell me anything. I start by reading that. And she was like, oh my God, that was exactly him. And I was like waving to Kevin in my office going, Kevin, you did good. Your mom knows you're still around,
That's fabulous. And what a comfort that is. What a comfort that is. You're still grieving. You're
right.
Still grieving, because I experienced it. I was on the floor,
right.
crying, hysterical. But there's an element of knowing I'm going to see him again.
And not only that, but I think when we allow ourselves to have the mystical come into our consciousness, when we allow those dream visions, when we allow those messages from departed, we even write them down. I tell everybody, sit down, meditate, talk to your departed, and then start writing, and write whatever you hear, whatever comes to you, and don't think about it. And you will get so many messages. And what that does for us, all of us, is say, they're fine. They never come through and go, oh, I'm really suffering here and I'm missing earth life. They never say that. They always say, hey, I'm in the great place of just pure love and unconditional love and all sorts of beauty. And you guys are in the hard place, Earth School.
That's it. And this is Earth School, quite a school.
That's right.
I think some people are getting their PhDs in this. Like
I know. I keep thinking, gosh, I must be flunking some grades or something because it seems like I should have graduated by now.
Especially with your resume.
I know. Like, please, how many more classes do I have to take? Somebody tell me.
Well, speaking of visions, you even received one about being lifted above earth and shown that the light is always winning, no matter how grim things may appear. So we've got a lot of grim things over here.
That's right.
So would you explain that to us?
If your viewers can see the screen, this is, my husband is a graphic artist, and I shared with him what my vision was, and he created this backdrop for me because I was lifted up above the earth by angels or guides, divine beings, and I was shown planet Earth from a distance, and I was shown that there were so many lights sparking other lights, and that even though there were dark places of consciousness, that the light was traveling so fast, it was covering the earth just so much like this picture, and that the light was, of course, overcoming the darkness. And the guides were whispering to me, don't look at how bad things can be and are. And this was before things went really crazy in 2016, 2017. It was right before then that I was shown the vision. And I remember thinking, are they really going to get that bad? That's kind of scary. And here we are now.
Here we are.
And I have to keep looking at this vision, remembering that I was told so clearly by these guides, the light is always winning. The love is always winning. You have to trust that. And so I say that to all of us here who right now might have anxiety, who might have fear. It's almost election time. There's so much anxiety in this world, and we've got to lift above it and get mystical guidance to help us maneuver down here. Because if we only focus on this crazy physical world, there's a whole lot of crazy stuff, and people just go, well, then why am I here? I don't even want to be here. And you've got to lift above it to see what your purpose is, to remember why you're still here, and how you can help others moving forward.
It's beautiful. And we'll be talking about your soul view in a few more minutes. But I also want to get to, you're so prolific with all that you've written. And one of your most recent books is titled Bridges to Heaven, True Stories of Loved Ones on the Other Side. How is the heart the gateway to intuition? And how can all of our listening audience use their intuition to see the other side? I'll bet a bunch of our listeners would love to be able to do that.
So the way I like to teach intuition is to help people understand that the monkey mind and the ideas that we have running through our head all the time is our human self, because we need a mind, we need an ego in order to survive in the physical world. And we sign up for that when we drop in down here. However, our true essence is the light being, the soul, the divine essence that we all are and have. And that is run by the heart chakra. It is not run by the mind. And the heart is the most powerful organ or chakra for connecting us to the loving God consciousness, whatever words you want to put to it, the loving presence that runs this divine order universe. And so through the heart, through emotion, through feeling, through knowing is how we connect to that higher source, that intuitive stuff. And when I help a client or when I train coaches, I'll always say something like, do somebody's number chart, because that was always a gateway way of doing it for me. Put your hand on that, close your eyes, just feel into what their journey is and what their departed is trying to tell them, and just feel what you get. And it comes in through the soul, through the heart, through a love channel. The love channel is our channel to God knowing, God consciousness,
Oh, wow.
to the higher realms.
If people want to learn more about that love channel, they'll learn about it through your book. And also you probably have workshops and all about that.
Yeah, if they go to my website, SueFrederick.com, they can find upcoming classes and events and speaking. And I have a YouTube channel that you can access from my website. And I'm always teaching and posting the classes on YouTube. And so there's a lot of ways you can follow my work. And if you want to do a session, it's all there on the website, how to sign up, SueFrederick.com.
That's great. And you also have a new book coming out titled Your
Yes.
Divine Lens. You have nothing to do, Sue.
Oh, well, this is such
when you sleep.
Well, Irene, you and I both know that when you're doing what your heart and your soul came here to do, it's a wild ride and every minute of it is
Sure.
magic. Like this book contract really came to me in a magical way
Wow.
with a great new publisher, Inner Traditions, and they're so awesome. And I think this will be like my best ever book. And it's called Through a Divine Lens, Practices to Quiet the Mind and Open the Heart. And you can pre-order it on Amazon.
Good. And it reveals that death is not an ending. It is a transformation. So is it true that we are shown the soul's perspective of our life here on earth in what is called the life review? And what is that like? So we all go through that, Sue?
Yeah, that is such a great thing to talk about. Anybody who's had a near-death experience or even talked to a departed loved one who's come back to give them messages, they all describe how when we lift up out of the body, we are held in loving presence, and we are shown a movie almost of our life in a way that helps us understand, gosh, maybe I could have been more courageous. I could have been more loving, but we're shown it in a very supportive way so that we're not feeling bad about it.
We're not judged.
We're not judged. Instead, we're just learning it. Learning from it and watching it and going, oh, wow. So it really was about love down there and courage, okay, I want to go back and tell my people down there that it's all about love. And so many of the spirits that come back, that's what they're saying. They're saying, it's all about love. Get over yourselves, people.
You also feel the pain you caused others as well as the results of the positive action. So if someone's been a very hurtful person on this planet, they feel what they did to the people who
so I want to make sure that people don't so when you think of religion, because I've studied every religious path I could get my hands on to learn from, they all talk about some sort of moment of judgment, right? And they might define it as heaven and hell or whatever. Even the Buddhists and the Hindus talk about it as karma. You're going to have to come back and even out your karma. But what I believe is that those aren't really accurate. They're just the human way of trying to understand that when we leave the body, our soul looks at what we've done and goes, wow, maybe I could have done better. Oh, look, I did good right there. Oh, yes, now I want to help out from here and send more love messages to the world. Or it's our own consciousness that looks at our life and says, gosh, I think now I understand how I should have done better. It's not an outside force.
So you're not actually feeling something. Like if you broke someone's head, you're not going to feel the pain of...
No, well, you're going to feel, like, I always think of it as a soul wincing and going, oh, like, I wish I hadn't done that to them. And I do know how much that messed them up. And that goes into your soul consciousness where you go, I will never do that again. I understand now.
Oh, it's a lesson.
That was wrong behavior, and I've learned from it, So we have to realize that even the murderer who gets away with murder never gets away with murder, because when they cross over, they actually see that all unfolding in front of them. They experience how they damaged that other person and how they damaged their loved ones, the loved ones of the murdered victim. And they feel it in such a way that it breaks them into higher wisdom. And they often then decide to help out from the divine realms, meaning that they'll help out the victim's family in ways that can't be seen in the physical world, but can only be seen from the soul's world, lifting them up through challenges, helping things happen for them that will serve that family. And we don't know this here because we're just looking at the human side of it. But there is a higher consciousness that we are made of and that we return to when we cross over.
That is beautiful. I'm sure a lot of people are appreciating that information. And I have another important question for you that pertains to healing and rebirth. Why is lifting into our soul's view and out of our human story so necessary for healing and a purposeful life?
Yeah, because we're not just human. And that's the story we sort of get lost in when we come here. We start thinking, oh, it's just about how beautiful my home is, or how successful my career is, or if I have the right wardrobe, and all of that stuff is not what this is about. And so when we meditate or sit in the silence or do prayer, whatever our particular spiritual practice is that lifts us out of this earthly view and helps us connect to higher self, or whatever words you want to put to it, God consciousness, whatever we can do to lift into that, it's like we regain our wisdom. Like, oh, right, that problem in front of me is not that important. But what I do want to know is I want to know how to help that person because I know they're in pain. That's what our higher wisdom tells us.
So it's
And
like an overview. Would you call it like an
Yes.
overview?
Yes, and especially if we're grieving or any of the things, so many people are going through such hard career times, financial times, grief. Go sit in the silence, pray, call in the light, call on your spirit guides, your angels, call on God consciousness to come and fill you with the wisdom of the higher realms. Your soul's wisdom has all the answers. If you go for a hike, you get back in touch with it. If you listen to certain kinds of music, you can get back in touch with it. But you have to quiet that mind and open the heart in whatever way that works for you.
And I love that you say in whatever way that works for you, because a lot of people say this is the only way you should do it. But
well,
right.
I'm such a curious spiritual seeker that I had to figure it out myself. So I actually lived in an ashram. I used to do like these week-long silent meditations with the whole Sangha, the whole group of us at the ashram. And it's true, that was extraordinary, because if you sit in meditation for 5 days and you don't speak, you're not allowed to speak, you definitely get lifted out of the physical body and you have incredible mystical insights. But what I've learned is, sure, we can do it that way, the hard way, or we can simply, call out for help. And like yesterday morning, I had a family little health crisis happening. And my first response was I wanted to jump in and try to solve the problem with my human mind, my human self. And that little voice in my soul said, stop, Sue. First, meditate, pray, take a breath, call in guidance from the higher realms, and then take action based on that. And that is such a different energy. And we can all do that. We can all do that.
That's incredible. Well, I know we talked a little bit about it, but I know you have a lot of classes that help people remember their soul's purpose and connect to the other side for healing. And are they online? And just tell us all about it, because people are writing down now soon. They want to participate in this.
So I think I'll be teaching a numerology class in January online on Zoom. And if you go to my website, SueFrederick.com, you can sign up there. And numerology has always been, since my husband Paul died, it was the first tool that I was given to help me lift up above the earth view, the ego view, and see things from the soul's perspective. And, I've been studying it since 1980 and teaching it and using it with all my clients. And I love it so much. Like, even when I am looking, for example, you, Irene, beautiful Irene, I know that you're on this Aquarius 11 master soul journey here. And we can go back and talk about where your deep sensitivity brought you. The 11 is a sacred, sensitive, intuitive path that could have also wounded you at times because of your sensitivity. And as we look at it that way and discuss your life that way, everything makes sense that's happened to you, and that why you've gone through what you've gone through, so that you could be this profound mystical teacher that you are, that's perfect for your path as an Aquarius 11. So we each have this great soul potential, and we can navigate it by looking at numerology. But I want to make this clear, everything here on earth is free will. So, for example, a murderer could be on the same Aquarius 11 soul path as you, simply because we make a free will choice about how to deal with our challenges, our pain. We could decide, hey, I'm just going to give up. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to blame everybody else. And we can kind of go down that dark path. That's a free will choice that we all have. And you certainly had that choice when you went through your horrible car accident and your husband's early death, and you chose to stand in the light, to seek answers. And that was your free will, beautiful soul saying, I'm going to step up to my 11 master soul journey, no matter how much I'm struggling.
Even before I was conscious of it.
Yeah,
honestly, too, I really wasn't. But then,
I mean, we all have those turning points, those forks in the road, and I interviewed Elizabeth Boisson, the founder of helpingparentsheal.org, and she said the fork in the road for her was pretty soon after her beautiful son, Morgan, had died at the base camp of Everest. She said she realized she was at this fork in the road of her life, where either she becomes the lady who spends the rest of her life on the couch with the vodka bottle, or really, this is Elizabeth's story. It's so beautiful. Or she was going to get up and start finding a way to help other people, especially other grieving parents. And look what she's done, this nonprofit, that she started. So we all have those choices. And whenever we call out for the light, the love, we step up into that greater potential.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Speaking of beautiful, I know you have a beautiful special offer for the members of our Grief and Rebirth podcast audience. Would you like to tell us about it?
Yes, because if anybody's struggling today, an easy tool to help them start seeing their life from that higher perspective is just use the numerology tools that I've created. I didn't create numerology. Pythagoras did, in 600 BC, but I've tried to make a user-friendly workbook. And it's also described in my other books that are I See Your Dream Job, I See Your Soulmate, Bridges to Heaven. They all have numerology in them. But I've got a free workbook for anyone who wants it. And Irene, how do I tell them how to get there?
It's all going to be through in your show notes and everything.
Okay.
So, but they can also put Sue Frederick. They can Google Sue Frederick.
Yes.
And it's going to come on.
And if they go to my website,
all this information about you.
And when they download that workbook, I would say print that out. And even if you think it's a little too woo-woo for you, go ahead, figure out your soul path, your date of birth. It's all explained there. And then start thinking, could this be true? And if it's true, how can it help me move forward through whatever challenge I'm facing?
That's wonderful. And I want to ask you a question about joy, because how does focusing on our divine lens view of every situation kind of bring us joy by doing it that way?
Yes, because the earthly view, oh my gosh, if we only look at this as a physical experience in a physical world, we can have moments of joy. We can say, oh, that's a beautiful sunset, and I love that butterfly and I love birds and all these beautiful moments. But when we can step up and look at it more from, what a ride this has been. My soul must have been really determined to learn some intense metaphysical truths and laugh from that higher wisdom. Like, all my best friends have been through enormous, devastating loss and grief, because we all go, what a journey this physical life is. And thank God we have each other to laugh with and go, this place here on earth is really messed up, but we know that it's only school and hopefully we'll be graduating soon. And that brings joy, that higher perspective, you know?
Well, I also am hearing that it keeps you from living in fear.
It's
It keeps,
absolutely
you
true.
know, because most people view, you said looking forward to graduating and away from school and
Yeah.
going to that higher perspective. Most people are so afraid
I
of death.
know. Isn't it terrible how our world thinks death is the end and everyone is so terrified of death when really it's, you know, the awakening into our true nature as divine beings, remembering who we are, that we just dropped in here for a little learning journey. If we
Right.
could all get that perspective, you know, it takes away so much fear and it helps us say, well, then I'm going to make every day count. I'm going to try to find love and compassion no matter what I'm facing. And I'm going to help other people in any ways that I can, because that's what we're here to
That's
do.
what it's about. I really love how a lot of people now have, instead of like maudlin, sad funerals, they're having
Yes,
celebration of life. It's like
absolutely.
applauding the person they know they graduated and they're on the other side and
And
celebrating
also
what they
knowing
accomplished.
that spirit is always watching. They love those celebrations of life. You know, they're like, yeah, show a movie about me,
Yeah,
play some of
I
my favorite music, you know.
I loved being the center of attention there, and I like being the center of attention
I
here too.
know. I've told my husband, Gene, it's like, I want Beatle music and I want Mozart's Requiem. Like, I got a lot of requests and you better make them happen.
I totally resonate with all of that. Yeah, totally. So I have to say, I was just going to say, and I, depending on which one of us arrives first,
Oh,
you want the
Irene.
champagne or you want,
Oh
what
my
would you?
gosh. Irene has already met the caterer in the Divine Realms and she's already got the champagne set
I
up.
got it flowing.
So you need to go first because I haven't yet reached out to the caterer. So if you can get the
Okay,
party set up and then I'll
we'll
come
make it
and join
happen.
you.
You know, so I absolutely love this quote from your book, Your Divine Lens. Death is an act of love.
Yes.
It's a surrender into greater love than you've known on earth.
Yes.
Allow this. Your guides are here to help you. The moment you take your final breath, you're set free of the dense body. Your spirit returns to the happy, loving essence of you.
Oh,
This is how you began this lifetime and how you'll end it. That is so fabulous. Thank you for your wise insights, Sue.
thank
And
you for reminding me of everything so that I could go have a worry-free weekend right before the elections.
thank you for both of us. Thank you so much. You have,
sweetheart.
oh, thank you. You have such wise insights and you impart such support. And you're so compassionate, and there are so many meaningful ways you comfort and guide people on their pathways to healing. You inspire people to view death as an act of love, not to be feared, and so much more. And Sue, I thank you from my heart for this incredibly enlightening and memorable interview with, don't blush, but the truly special person who you are.
Oh,
And here's,
you're an angel. I adore
thank you. Thank you. And here is a loving reminder, everyone, that you can see the show notes and all Grief and Rebirth podcast episodes on ireneweinberg.com, and make sure to follow us and like us on social at Irene S. Weinberg on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And if you're watching here on YouTube, click subscribe so you'll never miss an episode like this one with Sue. As I like to say, to be continued. Yes. Many blessings.
Many,
Bye
many
for now. And thank you again and again, Sue.
Oh,
thank you so much.
Thank you.